Thank you very much. It's not often you can actually say this, but it's a genuine privilege today to move a motion in support of a very deserving group of world-class athletes. Members may or may not actually be aware that Adelaide is home to an internationally competitive roller derby team. Now, if convention permitted, Mr President, I would point out that some of its members might be in the gallery today, and I would welcome them to Parliament if convention permitted, Mr President. That would be unparliamentary, so I would not do that. But if I could, I would welcome them to Parliament and point out that they're in the gallery. It would be quite disingenuous of me, actually, to pretend that in some way I've been a roller derby fan from way back. Now, I didn't know much about the sport until I went along to a match to represent the Minister for Recreation, Sport and Racing in the other place. But leading up to the event, as I contemplated going, it dawned on me that it's something that I've been quite curious to do for quite a long time. I had long driven past where the matches were held, and even before, I'd often wondered what actually happened in a roller derby event. I mean, I knew, obviously, it was something of a contact sport. That's kind of in the name. But and I knew that they must have some great deal of athleticism to achieve that. I also knew that roller derby athletes have their own unique pseudonyms, which reflect their individuality whilst contributing, I think, to the pretty vibrant culture of the sport. And that was about the extent of my knowledge, frankly. I did have images in my head of what it might be like, as many probably do, and most of them were way off the mark, Mr President. I kind of assumed that they sort of ran into each other, NFL style, and that it was a big part of the game strategy somehow. Well, more fool me. And it really shows, I think, my rugby bias a little bit as a former player of rugby, because there's actually a great deal more strategy to that in roller derby. In particular, I think it's actually hard to get your head around it when you first see it. That's how much strategy there is. It's a little bit like a chess game. The good people of the Adelaide Roller Derby are tremendous athletes in a very demanding sport environment. It involves a lot of strategy, a lot of tactics, and a great deal, certainly more than I have, of physical conditioning and strength to achieve it. And in watching, I realised how much the athletes actually invest in their sport, not just financially, but I realised how engaged the crowd is in watching it. Those who attended as spectators really get into the game, and I frankly regret that I didn't get around to watching a game of it sooner. What I would like members to appreciate in particular is that 2024 now is the first time in the 17-year history of the Adelaide Roller Derby that a representative A team, that is the ADS, have an opportunity to compete at the WFTDA Global Championships, which is the foremost event in an international roller derby. In effect, the big smoke. Now that's something that South Australians should be aware of, and that's something that we should all be really proud of. A homegrown team competing at the highest level on an international stage, it's a big deal. Now, unlike a number of other world-class sporting teams though, Adelaide Roller Derby is entirely self-funded. Each athlete on this team has paid their way to the tune of thousands of dollars to train and to attend games and tournaments both interstate and overseas. The cost of getting the team to the US to compete in the Global Championship is pretty significant. The team is, quite reasonably, seeking support from the South Australian community to cover their accommodation expenses for a start. Given that they're in a position to make history for their league and for South Australia, it's reasonable for those who recognise the value of the opportunity here to pitch in a small amount, and I and my office have done so. There's just so much to love about roller derby. One thing that I love is that it's a very egalitarian sport, and while it's very inclusive to all people, it features a particularly strong representation of women and non-binary people. They're not trying to make a statement in doing that, it's just simply a space where women and non-binary people are not only welcome, but quite rightly celebrated as people and as athletes. Roller derby is, in my view, significantly underappreciated relative to how good a sport it is and how great a time you can have when you get along to watch a game, and I encourage everyone here to do so. The effort that the ADS and the roller derby have put in to get, and the Adelaide roller derby have put in to get to this point is greatly worthy of recognition and a great deal of commendation. And I can see, well, I might be able to see that there might even be some medals on those people who might be in the gallery here today. I would like to give each athlete the recognition they richly deserve by naming them here in record today for Hansard, and that is Ainsley Jewett, or Mustache, Alex Knopf, that is Rage Ruthless, Anita Grace, Crusher Ramon, Ashley Tudo, or simply Tudo, I think you have to caps that, Ashley Wilkinson, Truffles, might be my favourite player, but anyway, we'll keep it. Caitlin Breyer, Crafty, Didi Whitford, Trinket, might also be a fantastic player, just quietly. Erin Marr, Easy Kill. Imogen Limberry, Invader Scrim. Isabel Hermes, I hope I'm getting that right, Ankle Grinder. Ivy Rose, Ross Dabler. Now, I'm going to go with IV, could be 4, could be either. Depends how much you're into Roman numerals. Jessica Aylett, or Jessica. Laura Higgins, Pinch of Salt. Megan Prest, Victoria Bitter, great name. Olivia Smith-Munro, Dark Side of Doom. Rhiannon Gregurk, Grim. Taylor Wilkinson, QT, and Tegan Bassett, Alice Affliction, also a fantastic player, just quietly. Now, in keeping with the reality of what's in front of the ADS going forward, the rest is kind of unwritten. So I thought I'd do that too. The fact is, what we have here is an underappreciated sport by many people in our state. They are champions in their own right, they've proven that much, and now they want to go off and be international champions. Now, I do encourage everyone here, and it's certainly something which is difficult to do for the purposes of Hansard, but I can tell you, these people are great people. They've achieved and invested quite a lot of time and effort and their own resources into getting to where they are today. They deserve recognition, but much more than that, they deserve support. I'd ask everyone, if you can, later on, this speech may or may not end up on social media, as sometimes they do. And when they do, you will find our link to donate. I encourage you to do so as much as you can. $2, anywhere ranging up to 2,000, Mr. President. But, they don't need the world, but they do need a little bit to make sure that they can get on the world stage and represent South Australia in the best way and in the kind of way that I think every South Australian would be proud of if they get along to roller derby game to see it. And that's the second thing I encourage you to do. Get along, watch it. It's a really great time. The Honourable Ms Franks and I did, and we did have a great time. Might have, gone and had a couple of beers afterwards too. So it's the kind of sport that leaves you with a great feeling when you leave it. And you can't say that for every sport these days, can you, Mr. President? So with that, I end the motion, and I congratulate everyone who may or may not be in the gallery once again.